All right, welcome to the Ambition Audio Show. We are live from the Hamptons. I have my good friend, not your average lender, Eric Braun on the podcast. Eric, how you doing?
Blessed, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love that. Blessed. I love that. So humble. So let's just jump right into it. How did you get into real estate? And you didn't go the traditional realtor route, just get your license. You went mortgages. So he's on that side of the business. Eric is a loan originator. So Eric, how did you get into the business?
Well, it's a funny story actually, because I fell into the business. It's not like I grew up wanting to be a loan officer. Right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't think many people grow up wanting to be a loan officer, right? But the way it kind of happened for me really is I got connected with somebody when I was 18. I met this guy, and I knew he was successful just by the way he dressed, and he was always in a suit and tie whenever I saw him. He drove the brand new Audi, and me being a car guy, that was something that I looked up to and noticed right away.
Gotcha.
Maybe that was just me being a little naive, me thinking like everybody that drives an Audi is a millionaire, which is not the case, right? But yes, I saw these things as like signs of success, and I started to build a relationship with him, and we connected on a personal level. And fast forward, I'm 20 years old. 2 years later, I'm not working. At a point in my life where I'm a little lost. I don't know where I'm going, what path I'm going to choose. And he asked me what I was doing for work, and I told him nothing. And he said, "Do you want a job?" I was like, "Absolutely." He's like, "How about this? You can be my chauffeur." I said,
"Really? The chauffeur? Get your shine box, Johnny."
So he said, I'll get a brand new Audi A8, which is like the big boy, and just the thought of that car, got me excited. And he was like, "You can drive me around. You can be my driver." And I was like, that sounds like a dream job. I was like, absolutely. I'll start tomorrow. And every time I saw him, I was like, when can I start driving for you? When can I be your chauffeur? When can I come to work? And after like 2-3 weeks of him kind of enticing me with that, he told me, "How about this? I have a real job for you. Come to the office on a Tuesday or Thursday or whatever it was, and for your interview." I was like, all right. Didn't tell me what industry he was in. Didn't tell me what he did. And I showed up to the office not knowing anything. He put an employment package in front of me. I filled out the employment package. I asked him how much would I be making, and he said a number. And it was a very modest number. Very, basically minimum wage. And he said, "But there's commission." And I'm like, well, what do you guys do? He's like, "Well, we help people save money on their mortgages, and that's pretty much it." And literally 2 weeks later, I was in what, now I look back at it, it was a call center, right? So I was telemarketing and cold calling people to refinance their mortgages. And that's really how I got started. And my first 2 years in the business, I was just kind of treating it like a job, right? And, it's not going to be what I do forever. And, it wasn't a career. I didn't treat it like a business. I didn't get licensed. I was more so just piquing people's interest, passing them off to an actual loan originator, which was what I am now. And that was my first 2 years in the business. And at some point I needed to make a decision, and I did. I got licensed. I passed my test. I got licensed. And then I started to really treat it like a business. And that's when I started to reap the rewards and what I've built today. So I always say, like, I've been in the business, almost 5 years now, but really in the business, it's really been 3, because my first year and a half, 2 years, it was just me going with the motions and collecting a paycheck, basically.
Yeah. Gotcha. And you were making like nothing. I mean, minimum wage, and you didn't even know if you wanted to do it. So you go from this guy, okay, you don't even know what the hell you want to do with your life. You're cold calling, it's just a job. It's your 9 to 5. You probably couldn't wait to get out of there. And now you branded yourself as not your average lender. So how did that branding process start? I noticed these guys like Charles Weinrob, just had him on the podcast, Handsome Home Buyer. You know, I'm Ambition Real Estate. You know, Brian Karp, Sales Giant. You went with not your average lender. That branding is important. So how'd you choose that? And how'd you make that jump from this is just a job to this is a career and I'm passionate about helping people?
Well, I think it was a realization, a personal realization before it was a business branding decision, right? So
Cool.
At that point when that point where I was describing where I needed to make a decision and I'm like, I need to either choose this path or this path, but I need to like go at it full speed. I was at a time in my life where, I was, again, lost, kind of just finding myself and figuring out my path. And I started to realize, like, I don't want to live an average life. I don't want average relationships. I don't want average, I don't want to go on average vacations. I don't want to be at a job that I don't want to be at. I don't want that. And I saw a lot of people living like that, right? So at first for me, it was just defeating average in my personal life, right? And trying to get a little bit better every single day and a step closer to whatever my goal was, whether it was to be happier, more connected with God, or it
Love
was
that.
to do more loans, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I made the decision, and I'm going through that process and asking myself, life's most important questions. Why am I here? What do I love? And what path am I going to go down? As I'm going through that in my personal life, and I make this decision to go gung-ho and actually go full speed with the mortgages, I also knew the importance of branding, and I just sat back and said to myself, like, well, I'm going to remove average from the real estate industry as well. And I'm going to be not your average lender. So I don't want to be the average loan officer that begs realtors for business. I don't want to be the average loan officer who doesn't know how to explain certain things and is poor at communication, or doesn't pick up the phone, or, just kind of doesn't. And that's the average loan officer. If I'm being honest, and I don't mean to put my industry down, but like, we need to get better, and that's the approach that I was going to take with my business. And that's why it fits so well with the brand. And so it was more of like a mindset shift that led to that brand name. And then everything, the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest just fell into place. And as I study successful people, I love what you said about the mindset shift, because, the mindset is everything. And, the Grant Cardones in the world, and that's just a basic example, but it's all about the mindset there. So what are you literally doing to separate from average? I see you on social media and you're saying, listen, first-time home buyers, I will not just get you a pre-approval and get you a commitment. I am going to educate you on the process, hold your hand, and get you through it. So what are you doing? That being an example, but what's another examples of how you actually are defeating average from real estate?
Right. Well, it goes back to, so my mission statement for anybody that's listening to this that doesn't know me, and this is something that you'll see in like my Instagram bio, and I hope a lot of my content, conveys this message, but my mission statement is to remove average from real estate by adding value to consumers and real estate professionals. So at the basis of everything that I do, it's all about adding value. And I really learned this from Gary V.
Gary V.
Yeah. I mean, that was like his, and I'm talking about Gary V kind of before he blew up. He was already blown up. Don't get me confused on what I'm saying, but before, like, teachers knew about him, and it was his audience was a little bit smaller. All he talked about was adding value, right? Nobody's focusing on adding value. If you're a personal trainer, like, how do you add value to your clients? Not just being there for that hour with them working out and telling them what exercises to do. Like, what other ways are you adding value to that client that's going to automatically separate yourself from all the other personal trainers out there? So that's always been my approach. So when people ask me, like, what makes you not your average lender, or what separates you from your competition, at the basis of everything that I do, it's about adding value. Whether it's the way I educate a consumer up front with that pre-approval process, like you were just touching on, or it's when I first sit down, or maybe the second or third time that I sit down with a potential referral partner, such as a realtor or a builder or, you know, an accountant, an attorney. I'm always asking myself, how can I help them do more deals, right?
Yeah.
And my goal is for, you know, Jeff Bezos had the best definition of brand that I've ever heard. It's,
I'd love
you
to
know,
hear it.
your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So my goal and what I aim to do is that when I'm not in the room, realtors say, hey, he helped me do more deals, or he helps me with my business like this. He's great with my customers, which leads down to more referrals, or he helps me with my marketing, which makes me do, you know, get more leads, which converts to more deals, right? So there's a ton of different ways that I help consumers, and then I help real estate professionals, but at the basis of it, it's adding value.
Love that. Love
Yeah.
that. That was a nice little golden nugget about what people say when you're not around. That's truer words have never been said. That is your brand. You know, you can't always be on the forefront, you know, and people, you know, when they're right face to face with you, they might say, oh, you're doing such a great job. You know, you're doing this right. I love how hard you work. But what they say when you're not around, that's the brand. I love that. I'll never forget that. So let's talk about the market now. Let's talk about the real estate market that's going on right now. It's crazy. You know that. Look at that face. It's crazy right now. So let's talk about the COVID restrictions. I'm curious from a learning perspective on this. So what are the restrictions you're seeing with COVID? And are you seeing any people getting loans with the PPE they received from unemployment, from all that extra, you know, I know kids that, you know, got, you know, $6,000 check and they were working off the books. So now they got 20 grand saved up and they want to buy a house and they're like 19 years old. So have you seen any of that? And what's the little restrictions that banks are putting on?
So as far as the
Let's provide some value now.
yeah. As far as the government money that you're talking about, so you cannot use borrowed funds as a down payment.
Gotcha.
It's completely against guidelines. So banks don't want you borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. That's at the foundation of sourcing a down payment. Like, part of the reason why a bank wants to know where you got your down payment funds from, and how do they do that? They get 2 months of bank statements, and any big deposit that you can't explain, we can't use, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't have a paper trail, or if it's from you collecting unemployment, that's a no-go, you know? Or is it some sort of unsecured loan? You can't do that. You can't pull a cash advance from your credit card and use it as a down payment. Same thing goes with any money that you're borrowing from the government. You can use borrowed funds or pull money from assets, meaning other houses or a HELOC.
Yeah, like you could do like a cash out refi.
Correct. So
Got it.
That's not what we're talking about, because technically that was your money, right? It's secured against your asset. So if it's unsecured and you got the money from anywhere else, it's not usable. So that's to just talk about that point. Now, as far as restrictions, I mean, we were hearing it was very, very, let's just say, stressful when this started to pop off, because what we were experiencing in our industry is every investor was looking at it differently. Okay. You had some banks, you know, increasing their credit scores requirements. You had some banks, you know, lowering their maximum debt to income ratio. You had some banks that, you know, wanted to limit how much of a seller's concession you were going to get. Like, there was a bunch of different guideline changes depending on the investor, depending on the institution. Now, us as an institution, we're still basing everything off of government guidelines. So the only overlay that we want to see at least a 600 score. right?
Gotcha.
And that was actually before COVID. Like at Contour as a company, our mortgage company, we wanted to see at least a 600 score. Anything that started with a 5, we were brokering out to an investor who was accepting that. Now what you see is fewer and fewer investors are doing loans like that. It's starting to come back a little bit, it's a difficult question to answer because every company is different, every investor is different, every bank is different. But yeah, at the very beginning, the first thing that we saw was non-QM loans completely removed from the shelves. So all of the non-QM investors completely left the space.
And for those listening who don't know what QM is, you mind describing that?
Yeah, so QM stands for qualified mortgage. Okay, so non-QM is non-qualified mortgage, meaning these are your stated income deals. These are your, deals that they're not looking at pay stubs or W-2s, and they're calculating income a little bit differently than your regular FHA, conventional VA, USDA loans. Those are all regular qualified QM loans. So the first thing that we saw were those stated income deals completely removed from the shelf. And this also included hard money. So I know you just had Charles on here. He was talking about this a lot when this first was popping off, because in his business as an investor, most of his competition was relying on hard money to acquire these deals. Mm-hmm. He wasn't. So he was at a clear advantage when non-QM was removed from the shelf, because that didn't hurt him. He was using his own money or his investors' money, his personal investors' money. So that was the first thing that we saw happen. The next thing that we saw happen was extreme volatility in interest rates. So you saw interest rates skyrocket to 5% one day, back down to 2% the next hour. And this was like throughout the industry. Doesn't matter what company you were working with. And this is because of what was going on in the secondary market. So interest rates and pricing all is based on the secondary market and how investors are buying these loans, right? Mm-hmm. When you have big investors that don't know how to read the situation, that's going to lead to extreme volatility in the interest rates because they don't know how to put a price to these things. Okay, so we saw that. Then what happened? The Fed came out and they said, we're pouring trillions of dollars into the bond market. We're pouring trillions of dollars into mortgage-backed securities. And the reason they did this was to keep the economy afloat, right? So that banks kept being able to lend money. When you have banks not able to lend money, that's a big, big problem. Okay. Then you're going to lead down the road of real estate collapsing. Banks are going to go out of business. That's a bad path. So in order to, make sure that didn't happen, the Fed came out and bought trillions of dollars of mortgage-backed securities and poured trillions of dollars into the bond market. Now, that's what led us to where we are now. So that was called quantitative easing. Anybody that's interested in this stuff, look up, COVID quantitative easing on Google, and you can read a bunch of articles on it. But that's why interest rates are at an all-time low, because of what the government did. They poured money into the market, and that's why banks are lending at such a low rate right now. And that's where we are right now. So that was like a full sequence of events from kind of start to finish. And there was a bunch of little things that happened in between, but it was, needless to say, bottom line, it was in a very, very crazy, wild, and stressful time. Those first few, I'm going to say 60 to 90 days, because nobody knew what was going to happen, because nobody has been through something like this before. It's not like 2008, 2009. It's a completely different animal. We're talking about a health crisis, So that's from start to finish, I guess, a quick sum up.
Yeah, I love it. And, it sounded like with COVID, I mean, you didn't quit. You didn't just sit in your room. No. What you did was you hopped on. You're like, how am I going to tackle this? You started producing content, Producer Plateau. You did that one video that was friggin' awesome, man. It was about budgeting and your taxes and all that. I loved that video. I really did. So that was good stuff. And not only did you not roll over, but you know, you educated yourself, and it sounds, and you gave the listening audience a little guideline of what's actually going on, and you helped me too, you know.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So we're in a hot market right now. You know, the Fed is lending to banks at, you know, 0%. So how long do you see this continuing? How long do you see interest rates staying in the twos? And how long do you see, you know, people staying out of offices and wanting to deal with, you know, buy Long Island real estate? How long do you see the Long Island real estate market staying this hot?
There's two factors that, depending on what happens, I think are the only things that can affect or potentially affect this huge momentum that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, the election.
Okay.
For obvious and not so obvious reasons.
Understood.
Until that happens, you don't know, because that's a chain reaction. When there's a change of office, if there's a change of office, that's a chain reaction, you know. So I don't know what could potentially happen. If it's going to slow down, speed up because of that. And then the other thing is the CARES Act coming to an end. So the CARES Act basically allowed people with mortgages to go into forbearance, right? So this was the government's way of making sure that we didn't run into a foreclosure crisis because people were being laid off from their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, hey, banks, work with us. This is the CARES Act. People can suspend their mortgage payments for X amount of time. Now that term, that X amount of time, I believe is coming to end in March. Now, even if there's a negative effect from that, meaning foreclosures, right? We still have record low inventory. So even if, let's say, and this is not to get into politics, but let's say the election takes place and who's ever in office, it's a negative for real estate for whatever reason, okay? Not to name names, and again, not to get into politics.
Get into it. Don't be scared.
So, I mean, even if that happens and there's a negative reaction into real estate because of the election, even if there's a spike in foreclosures and there's a negative reaction because of what's going on with the CARES Act or the CARES Act coming to an end, we have to look at the fundamentals, right? The fundamentals mostly meaning supply and demand, okay? Supply is at an all-time low. I think there's like 2 or 3 months of inventory on the market right now.
I can't understand it. Why aren't people selling? You know, I was just telling you, I lost a bidding war $25,000 over asking price. You know,
Yeah.
That was yesterday. 25,000 over. Didn't get it.
So even if we have a little spike in inventory, it's still at record lows. Even if we get another month or 2 months, we're still within that very, very healthy appreciation sort of market. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the supply end. The demand end, meaning buyers, right? How many buyers are looking? There's a few very important factors with this. Number one, you have interest rates being at an all-time low, which means money is cheap, which means more people want to buy because affordability is there, right? So I did a video on this.
That was another great one.
Yeah, the difference of buying, you know, at a 4.25% interest rate to a 3% interest rate.
For the listening audience, do you want to give a quick example?
Yes. So I don't know the exact math, but if you go to my profile, it's Not Your Average Lender on and actually the best way to find this video, because I have it pinned, is YouTube. So if you type in Not Your Average Lender to YouTube, click on my channel, it should be the top video that pops up. But basically, very, very simply, let's say 8 months ago, before COVID hit, before we had a drop in interest rates, you were at a 4.25% interest rate. Now you're at a 3%. So when we talk about interest rates being low, what does that actually mean for me if I'm a buyer? Well, the scenario that I laid out, I think it was like a $300 difference per month, which is huge, right? So now instead of paying $3,500 for a mortgage, you're paying $3,200 for a mortgage. Now get this. Not only that, you could also buy a more expensive house and still be below what you were going to pay. So it increases it increases buying power, and you know, affordability is better. So you have that affecting the demand right now, and that's why you see so many buyers in the market, or that's one of the reasons. The other reason, and this is something that I learned from a guy named Barry Habib, who's like,
shout out Barry.
yeah. So he's a 2-time Crystal Ball Award winner. What does this mean? Crystal Ball Award is, they give it out every year, and it's basically whoever made the best prediction, like their predictions came true. So to get that award he's, you know, and this is a guy that's on every news network channel there. He's respected in this field, right? So he always talks about the birth rates. Okay. Now, what does birth rates have to do with, you know, demand and buyers? The average age of a home buyer is 32 or 33 years old. Now, what happened 33 or 32 years ago, there was a spike in birth. Like there's a lot of people having babies. It was a good time for the economy. There was a lot of different and just before that, you had that law passed for abortion. So there was actually, I'm sorry, not just before that, but that was also part of the reason why there was less demand in 2008 and 2009, because 30 years prior to that, you had this law passed on abortion. So you had less birth rates than ever before, which meant 33 years later, there's going to be less buyers. That was 2008, 2009. Now we see a very, very strong increase in the amount of babies that are being born. That 33-year-old demographic is at extremely high population right now. So what does this mean? More buyers to the market. Okay.
Or actual people.
Yes, more people, right? And areas like Long Island, there's no houses being built. So you have more people, no houses being built. You have even more people because they know interest rates are low. And you also have an influx from the New York City, which is a whole nother thing specifically to our market, not across the country. But you have all these factors. So that's what I was saying. Even if there's a negative effect in the election, negative effect for the CARES Act ending, it's not going to hurt the momentum that we have. It's like throwing a pea at a bull. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to do anything. I mean, maybe it is going to do something, but my prediction is we're looking at a very strong market for at least the next year and a half, 2 years, in my opinion. Interest rates may fluctuate throughout then, but as far as the fundamentals, like I'm talking about now, we're in a very, very good place.
That's cool. Real quick, how long do you see these interest rates staying low like this?
I think a year. I think we have a good year. And that's just me being cautious. It may be 2, it may be 3, it may be 4, but I think there's enough factors that is going to hold us here for at least a year. Great.
All right, Eric, I really appreciate it. Just so much information. That's really good stuff. You helped me, you helped the listening audience. You know, the listening audience here, you know, a lot of young gunners getting into it, realtors, people looking to buy their first houses. I mean, I'm 27. I'm not sure how old you are, but I think we're similar in that age. And, you know, people that are looking to now buy real estate, potential first-time home buyers. So that was awesome. Now let's talk real estate investing really quick. This is what really gets me going. This is what gets my blood going. So let's talk about real estate investment. So because you're doing very well on the mortgage side, you're doing a lot of business, you know, everyone sees it. So what are you looking at for real estate investment right now?
So it's funny you ask. So it's very difficult, and real estate professionals can kind of empathize with me on this. It's very difficult to do your own deals in real estate when you're helping everybody else buy.
Going on podcasts.
Yeah, and going on podcasts and you know, structuring loans and putting out fires and answering phone calls. It's very difficult to find a house for yourself, right? So me personally, I thought when it comes to this topic, I follow Grant Cardone, right? So when it comes to investing, business principles, maybe even some sales stuff, I follow Grant Cardone. He always talks about buying apartment buildings, right?
Of course.
And I think his rule is nothing less than 32 units. So that's my end goal, is to buy something like that. And when I say end goal, I mean maybe I'm hoping 3 years from now, you know, 2 to 3 years from now, maybe 4, maybe 5. Okay.
And you're looking at some kind of recession-proof 40-unit building. Is that what you're looking for?
I'm looking for something that I could buy, add value to by maybe renovating each unit, or maybe add more units. Something that I can buy, add value almost month one, raise rents, and stabilize. That's the name of the game in that space, right? Maybe even cashing out once you do have that higher value, because banks in that space, it's all about the value of the building, which is all about the rent roll. So if you increase the rent on something, the value of that building now goes up. So that's a whole nother, world. And that's not something that I'm an expert in. And that's part of the reason, not only am I saving capital for it, but part of the reason why I want to give myself 2 to 3 years is I want to educate myself in the space. Then you have guys like Charles, who he gets mentioned again, who absolutely crush it in the single family rental space, single family, 2 family, 3 family, 4 family. He has a few bigger houses than that, but not anything like a 32 unit building. So both work. Now, the reason I'm choosing the bigger deal is time, right? So instead of me taking time every year to find 2 or 3 properties, I'd rather focus on what I'm good at, my high paying skill, which is mortgages, and save as much, put it in the right places in the meantime, meaning stocks. And I also invest with Charles. So his business model, he doesn't use hard money. He uses his money, but he also takes on investors, guys like me, who will give him X amount of dollars and he'll pay monthly in interest. So I have some money with him. I have some money in the stock market. I have my 401k, and then it's all about kind of holding it until that big deal. That's the way I'm looking at everything. That could be right. That could be wrong. That's just my thought process behind it. Because Charles, for instance, when you talk about that, flipping houses, buying, smaller, and I call them smaller deals, but let's just say single family houses and renting them out. It's, he does that full time, right? That's every waking minute of his life is for that, right?
He lives and breathes it.
I don't have that. So that's why I rather, and this goes back to kind of picking your lane and staying in it.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I take my foot off the gas in mortgages and put my energy into real estate investing, I'm going to lose money, right? I'm going to lose opportunity. I'm going to lose relationships. I can't afford to do that at that point in my business. So it's full steam ahead in my lane, doing the right thing with the money, and down the line, doing the right thing with the money again. Yeah,
you're getting smart. I mean, you have the 401k, so you're diversifying a little bit, but you're saving your money and you're going full steam ahead, like you just said, on mortgages. I love it. I just wanted to ask you, we're bringing on the all-stars of Long Island, New York City real estate onto this podcast, you being one of them. Just wanted to pick your brain on that for a little bit.
I think what a lot of people forget to do when it comes to the topic of investing is invest in themselves. So what a lot of people don't see is I have a coach. I pay him, it may be a small or a big figure for you. I pay him $2,000 a month to just work on me, work on my business. I get a certain amount of time on his schedule, and I rather spend that on me than take that $2,000 a month and hopefully find a single family deal, right? So another thing that people fail to realize is you also have to invest in your business, right? So we're all talking about buying real estate, but then if I look at, what you're spending your money on, it's all going towards food, saving up for a deal, but none of it's going back into your business that is actually paying for your lifestyle, right? So I hired not a full-time, but a once a week videographer for the year, right?
Awesome.
And that was a big check, right? I have systems in place where, you know, I have services that I'm signed up for that tell me when to lock. I hire, right? I have 2 assistants right now, or one of them is becoming a processor, and then one of them is, you know, helping me with the front end stuff. So this is all me investing into my business. This is a topic that a lot of people miss because they're focused on themselves, trying to invest for their long-term wealth, but they're being short-sighted, or they're not seeing the short term, right? So I need to get my business to a point where it's on autopilot, there's systems in place, and everybody has work-life balance, and I'm doing more deals and it's scaling. Sometimes that costs money, right? And a lot of people are just very quick to throw some money into Tesla, but very slow to hire that person, right? So,
Yes.
and it's all right to throw money. I just threw money into Tesla, but you have to do both, right?
Yeah.
So that's, as far as the topic of investing, that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah. And you know what? I really appreciate you, brother, but I really appreciated that as well, because not to kiss your ass too much, but you know, you hear Grant Cardone, he'd be like, you know, some guy would come up to him like, listen, Grant, you know, I'm making good money. I got 40,000 saved. And he'd be like, you got 40 grand. You ain't got no money. He's like, you invest that in yourself. But when you say invested in yourself, it's like, all right, Grant, what the fuck does that mean? You know, and you just invested in myself. All right, should I buy a suit? Should I, you know, like, what am I doing? So you just put it into really good examples. You know, I really appreciated that. So Eric Braun, Not Your Average Lender, guy's killing it. It's, you know, go check him out on Instagram. You know, Eric, you want to plug yourself?
Well, I mean, I'm Eric Braun on Facebook, Not Your Average Lender on YouTube and Instagram. So I'm very easy to find. If you're a real estate agent, anything, matter of fact, reach out to me. Let's connect. I'm always, because of social media, because of me putting myself out there on things like this, I have friends in states that I've never even been in, you know, where if I ever touch down in that state, I have somebody to grab dinner with. And I like that. So if you're listening to this, you connected with it, you resonated with some of the stuff that I've said, reach out to me. Let's see what we can do together, even if it's just a quick conversation of what's going on in your life and what's going on in mine.
All right. Yeah, that's awesome. And listening audience, if you are listening, check out his YouTube. I watch it. I really enjoy it. He's got some awesome stuff on there. And listen, Eric, if you're ever out in the Hamptons, let's get lobster.
See, that's what I'm saying. Lobster rolls on you.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you soon, brother. Thank you.
All right. Absolutely. All right. Ambition Audio Show, Not Your Average Lender, signing off.